Anybody? A few. Well, back when I used to make New Year's resolutions, it was always a resolution to fix mistakes that I believed I was making. I would resolve to lose weight, or eat more vegetables, or eat any vegetables, or eliminate soda from my diet. And then 3 days, or 3 weeks, or on the rarest of occasions, 3 months later, I would quit. Because I realized absolutely nothing in my heart or in my desires or my soul had changed. I was still making the same mistakes, and knowing that I was going to make the same mistakes, because even though I thought I wanted to quit making those mistakes, I wouldn't. I would have to go through all the feelings that would eventually lead to rationalizing away my mistakes. But in my heart of hearts, I knew I was still making those same mistakes. When we get to the end of the year, many of us spend some time reflecting on the year that is just ending. And if we do that sort of reflecting in our lives, my guess is we spend maybe a few moments thinking about the successes in our lives, the things that went well, the things we feel good about, the blessings that we can count. And my hunch is, after we're done with those few moments of thinking about successes, we spend a lot more time thinking about everything we did wrong. All the mistakes that we made. The friendships that we didn't give enough time. The things we wish we hadn't said or done. Or the mistakes that we have carried around in our memories and in our souls for years. The kind of things we take out in the middle of the night and rehearse over and over, just so we don't forget the mistakes that we've made. We spend time regretting our mistakes, and the problem is focusing on our mistakes makes it really hard to forgive ourselves. Focusing on our mistakes makes it really hard to believe that God forgives us. And then we find people who do things so very, very well, like the wise men we read about in Matthew's Gospel. They didn't seem to be making any mistakes. They were traveling for up to 3 years, making their way to a place where the star said a new king would be born. We never read about them getting lost. We never read about them asking for directions. We never read about them having forgotten or made a mistake. They just didn't make mistakes. They even were smart enough to follow the etiquette for foreign rulers visiting a different country. They stopped to see the king of the region, King Herod, and as foreigners entering the country, they assured Herod they weren't there to spy, they weren't there to make any trouble. They were just there to follow their interest in astrology. They were curious about who this new king might be, what sort of king, what sort of Messiah, what sort of Savior this child might be. They even brought gifts for the now toddler who would become king. They went out of their way to bring gifts that were appropriate for a Jewish king. They themselves were not Jewish. They came from a place that worshipped idols, but they brought the appropriate gifts for a Jewish king. Gold, to symbolize wealth and power. Frankincense, which was burned in the temple every day to let people know God was present. And they even brought myrrh, the fragrance that would be needed for when this new king left this world. These were people who'd been around the block a few times, and they knew exactly what was expected of them and exactly what to do. They didn't have to spend any time looking back and reflecting on their mistakes. However, Matthew's Gospel never mentions a fourth wise man. The skit guys do, however. We're going to watch a video. I hope.
Thought you said we lost him.
Thank goodness for that star. If it wasn't for that star, I wouldn't have found you guys.
Pretty convenient that now you can read the stars.
Oh no, just that big super bright one. I mean, it's like, blam! but I'm still gonna need directions home. Can someone write that down for me?
We don't have time for this. We're going to see the Messiah.
Look at us, the 4 wise men. We're inseparable.
More like insufferable.
Speaking of suffering, my feet can't take much more walking. It's been 3 years. We should have been home by now.
You guys can blame me all day for losing those camels, but you all knew going into this that my double hitch knot needed a little work.
Why don't we proceed in silence, reverent silence, in honor of the Messiah?
Totally cool with that.
Good.
So, I was thinking about my gift. I mean, what baby needs white jade anyway, right?
We've been over this 1,000 times. White jade represents his purity and goodness. The gold represents his royalty. The burning of frankincense reminds us that the aura of God is around us at all times, and the myrrh is to anoint him as King of Kings.
Right, just listen. I think about a better gift. A gift that'll make everyone forget that I lost the white jade.
You what?
I mean, I think a gift that makes the white jade just look like nothing. A gift that's better than the white jade that I replaced.
You replaced with what?
The greatest gift of all. Oh yeah. Wait for it. Blam! Hummus!
You must be kidding.
Do you mean you must be kidding? Because I'm not kidding at all. Hummus is delicious, okay? And it's very symbolic. People unite together when they see hummus. Much like a savior. Okay. It's my bad. It's on me. You guys go see the Messiah. I'll just stay here.
I think that would be best. But at least you have a snack.
Yeah. I just thought it just doesn't matter what we bring this little king. He doesn't need any of our gifts. I mean, you know, he's a savior. I mean, he's a gift to us. Maybe I was hoping he's bigger than all my mistakes. Yeah, I guess that's what I was hoping. All right, I'll see you guys later. Why are you doing that?
Because I hope he's that kind of a savior too. Let's go.
I wish someone had some pita bread. Oh, I have.
I love this kid, guys. But that raises the question, what kind of savior are we looking for? What kind of king are we looking for? When I was brought up, when I was a child, I was brought up to believe that Jesus, God with us, was a savior looking for mistakes. I learned that God was quite arbitrary in handing out rewards and punishments. I learned that even though I might try as hard as I could to do everything right, God would still, because God knows all, be able to name a mistake that meant I was not worthy of heaven. I lived in fear of God's judgment. Anybody else ever have that sense? Living in fear of God's judgment? Yeah. And maybe I'm not the only one who grew up that learning God was judgmental and harsh and really kind of looking out for our mistakes, a kind of gotcha God. And my guess is that more than a few of us grew up learning about a God who was looking for mistakes, a God who was looking for ways to condemn us rather than love us, the Old Testament kind of God that said either obey or face the fire kind of God. And like the fourth wise men, I suspect we would all really like to find a Savior that forgives mistakes. We'd like to know of a Savior that understands how hard it can be to be a human being. We would like a God that knows that we make mistakes and still loves us. We'd like a God that loves us the way we are and then loves us too much to leave us the way we are. I think we'd like a God that takes our meager abilities and gifts and then turns them into gold. We'd like a Savior that understands that what we have to offer isn't all that much until the Spirit of God takes our hummus and turns it into gold. We'd like a Savior, a God, that takes our meager abilities and uses those to feed the world. See, the wise ones followed a star. God gave them a star to follow until the toddler Jesus was able to find them. And when they were found, they discovered that God was a king, a Messiah, a Savior, the kind of God who had everything they needed. So as we begin the new year, if we spend any time reflecting back on the year that has just been, perhaps on the mistakes we might have made, the things that we think went wrong, the things that we hope will go better, maybe some resolutions, we can remember that we start this year with a clean slate, that our God, our Christ, forgives our mistakes and gives us another chance. We can remember that Jesus is a God who forgives us and gives us second chances and more. Maybe we don't need resolutions. Maybe we don't have to try to fix our mistakes ourselves, but rather we can turn to our Jesus, our Messiah, our God with us, and worship that Christ. Because our mistakes in the eyes of God don't have to stay mistakes. Things we wish we had done better can be made better through the Spirit and the love of God. That the white jade we lost and the hummus that we're now bringing can be turned into something amazing and wonderful if we give it to God. Happy New Year. Amen.